live. As you can tell, it's the end of the day. It's already dark out, and I do want to relax. And it seems like there's so much going on as far as chaos, and I can't even take it another minute. It's like some people just need to take a hot shower, step away from the television, step away from these YouTube streets. And I've noticed more and more YouTube is not hitting like it used to. It's definitely becoming more dull, more redundant. But of course, I'm going to add my 2 cents because, of course, I'm led to certain things. Everyone has their gifts. It's not a competition, it should be a collaboration, and it's great to be competitive in a healthy way where we share each other's information and as far as our notes. I do refer you guys to my Patreon. I will be working on that quite a bit and doing step by steps and digital downloads and really cool stuff for like the advanced people who want to fill out certain forms, who have actually done some studying and are ready to like take care of business. You may have a business you want to start. I have prepared the paperwork to help people who are beginning to be an entrepreneur to actually get a bank account, DBAs, things like that, and move accordingly, right? And a lot of these news stories is really like so many distractions. Like once you learn a little bit more about like signs and symbols and you really get like a full understanding spiritually and intellectually, that really does go hand in hand, then a lot of things will not shock and surprise you and stress you out. A lot of people feed off of stress, feed off of adrenaline, and really don't realize like the voodoo nature that happens with television. I've seen people live their whole lives, guys, like childhood friends who like live their whole life through music videos. Like seriously, I can see why people don't know how to interact with each other, right? And then when they became middle aged, now all they watch is like the news, and I'm like, how can you watch this stuff over and over, like paying to watch that? And can't people see patterns? Can't they see like the same stories being played out over and over again, guys? Like every few years, right? And my heart goes out to any of you guys who are dealing with the hurricanes and all of that. And just the fact, though, that they have like actual names is like really strange to me. But when you go into like certain books and you try to understand like the nature of things, hi, how are you, then you kind of can look at it through a unique perspective. So I was led to I use numbers to kind of lead me back to verses and different books. Hi from Afghanistan, welcome, I love that. Please like the video. Yes, is it chaotic over there too? From Atlanta. Oh, I love that you guys are up right now. It's so cool, like from all over. Yes, I just got home a little while ago. It was like crazy with just traffic, so chaotic, and the tailgating is ridiculous, guys. Hi. Well, when I'm at work, I'm like, hello, this is Diana. I go by Dia as well. It's like a nickname too, to try to be more like low key, right? But my name is Diana. So that's why I talk about different references too. But I'm a little tired, so my voice kind of drops a little, guys. So some people pick on it. So I appreciate the compliment. But yes, guys, I don't know how informed you are. This is like my infotainment channel. I'm not sure. Should I name it 13, channel 13 or 7, right? I'm always getting these numbers because that's when I was born, right? And I'm led to certain verses. I was led to a verse in Nahum. I do use the scripture with law books too, right? And it led me, guys. I think it was chapter 1, verse 3. So that makes 13. So like weird things like that come up. And it says that the Lord is slow to anger and great in power and will not at all acquit the wicked. The Lord has his way. in the whirlwind. You can kind of look at that like storms, tornadoes, hurricanes, guys. And in the storm and the clouds are the dust of his feet. He rebukes the sea and makes it dry and drinks up all the rivers. Bashan languisheth, and Carmel, arid the flower of Lebanon, languish. The mountains quake at him, and the hills melt, and the earth is burned at his presence. Yea, the world and all that dwells therein. Who can stand before his indignation? And who can abide in the fierceness of his anger? His fury is poured out like fire, and the rocks are thrown down by him. Isn't that crazy, guys? And when you think of like shows talking about fire and ice, like have you been so upset that like the blood in your veins turn cold? Like that's happened to me. Like I'll literally go cold, right? And so I can kind of like understand how you can have like a fiery temper, but it's like when you're wronged and like you see injustice or somebody being hurt or wicked people, and we don't know what people do behind the scenes or why certain locales. I'm not saying, I'm not giving an opinion one way or another, but I know that even in the word scripture, you got the word script. We are living in this script. And even in the Quran, guys, I know some of you guys are probably Muslim. It talks about Abraham and different characters that are in the Bible. So it does go hand in hand. And they came from like similar groups and stuff and learned from like the original. But it also talks about Isaiah is really good. Chapter 4, that number 4 comes up in chapter 25, how he's also the refuge in a storm. And if we had more education, right? I always put you guys on to some of my books, guys. This stuff costs some money. And instead of like buying stupid stuff, I know it's women too. I mean, we'll do the most, right? Even some makeups, right? Thank you so much. I will pray for you guys, whoever needs it. But we need to like invest in things that profit us, right? Like intellectually, spiritually. I totally believe that because you can have like a whole regeneration internally where it keeps you centered amongst the storm, because in this world we are in like the storm together. And I feel like the more that we're exposed, like it's not by accident that like the TV came into play and it got put into so many different countries so we can all be exposed to the same things. You guys overseas are watching some of our older shows, like our older programming, like to show us like how to behave, but it's almost like they want you to emulate that. You know what I mean? It's like art imitating life, imitating art. And I see people like live their whole lives like because of that influence, right? Instead of like letting it happen organically. It's like, would have they been the same individual? A lot of people don't even do that deep dive. Sometimes that's needed, right? Because you're like, wow, all this exposure, but yet people have no knowledge of how like some of this stuff works and the players behind the scenes and how they even, doesn't matter if they just go for film or whatever, right? Being a producer, it's like in all these colleges, they push psychology too. They know how the mind works and things like that. And they'll flash certain symbols. I see in people now, even people who are so-called religious, getting certain symbols. These are like talisman. And it's like a call to like draw energies in. So I know a lot of people do it like blindly, innocently. When I was younger, I had a tattoo on my arm. I ended up getting it lasered off and it was like a Chinese symbol. And I thought, oh, I was being cool or something, right? And not realizing that that could be almost like a marking, right? Like a calling card. So we got to be careful with that. You'll see people their whole life like not be about it, and then middle age having like a midlife crisis, like what I mean, trying to run with the younger crowds. And that's a whole other topic because I seen some stuff earlier today, and yeah, that's gonna have to be a whole other topic too, because people are under like a demonic spell and it's like causing chaos to ensue. Even this here where people think it's like, oh, such an innocent religious symbol, was like a seal of Solomon, conjuring up demons and stuff. And you'll get this in cartoons now, shows marketed toward children. So we got to be cognizant. We don't think that we can be influenced by some of this stuff, but like you take it in enough through the black mirror. So some of us, we come on here and it's like, oh, we try to be a little bit more. I don't know if I'm like a throwback. I'm trying to make it where it's like totally organic and I'm teaching you something new. It could be on like a spiritual level. It can be holistic medicine I like to talk about. If you guys have a question, I'd like to answer that too. I started an educational ministry where I teach people their rights and, because there's a lot of questionable people that are in positions of power. So usually around election years and these politicians, it's always like all of this stuff as like a smoke and mirror. It's like what's going on behind the scenes. A lot of people who are living here the past 40 years have like bigger questions going back to 9/11, right? And even those numbers come up a lot for me. I told you guys I shared that with you. Yeah, creepy thing. That the time I was born was 9/11. Like, have you guys ever looked at the patterns in your life too? And in Revelation, it's really interesting because I was on my way to work and there was like a white truck. It was like the creepiest thing out of a movie. I mean, I was already going like 5 miles over the speed limit, even though it's a so-called vacation town and you're supposed to freaking go slow. So I'm on my way to work, trying to get there in one piece, and I'm in well within my parameters, right? Keeping it safe, but not too slow. And this guy was like this big, huge truck. It was like a Chevy, and I seen the cross, and it like messed with me, guys. I mean, that's why some of us we just think different, so we like to share. And don't tell me that if you guys didn't do your research, you'd be like, aha, right? Because all of these car companies too, they use like the symbols, right? So there has the cross, and don't act like, oh, it's always so holy, because we know in the Satanic Temple they like using their freaking crosses too. So I'm like thinking about the white horse or the pale horse in the book of Revelation, right? So I looked up, I freaking looked up, guys, the white horse. I think it's Revelation chapter 19:11. I'm like, I can't with these numbers. Like, God always shows me. He's going to show you in different ways. I met a woman today who was all into God. Was telling me that, she, gets inspiration and this and that. So don't tell me people don't see it, right? And in chapter 19, book of Revelation, verse 11, 11 is a constant too. And I saw heaven opened, and behold, a white horse. And the horsepower, like back in the day, a car would be a horse, right? Now your car is like, this many horsepower, get it? And he that sat upon him was called faithful and true. And in righteousness he does judge and make war. His eyes were as a flame of fire, a lot of references to fire. And on his head were many crowns. And he had a name written that no man knew, but he himself. And he was clothed with a vesture, I guess maybe like an outfit, dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. And he treads the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of Almighty God. I thought that was so interesting. Just because he was like right behind me. It's my little lamp, guys, so I can not have that glaring light because I had it on and it was just like too overpowering. This is good for emergencies. That's why when you hear stories about people going through it and stuff, and so it always makes you think to like back up. I hope it's not too dark. To back up their stuff. Maybe if I put it here. I just didn't want to make it like too bright. Is it like too bright? Can you see me a little better? I appreciate your efforts to combine everyone. Of course, some people just market, like I'm not here to like market to one group because sometimes I get along with guys more than girls. Sometimes it just depends. It depends on their spirit. So I can't be like, oh, women, like, and just like, try to capitalize on just like, the sisterhood, the brotherhood, whatever they want to call it, although we're like non-Masonic over here, but you get my drift, right? Because this can affect a lot of people and well-meaning people too. Because I met this really incredible, special guy. He seemed like he was really down to earth, and he lost someone close to him, and he was just having a hard time like thinking about like the afterlife or if there even is anything after. And I tried to give him words of encouragement and stuff, and like knowing that this is like all a test and that we're here for a time, and it's like what we do with it. And even your dreams too. I don't know how much you guys dream, but my dreams can be like super super intense. The Bible calls it visions too. I don't know. It could be like hereditary. I was raised in a Seventh Day Adventist church. I heard stories about Ellen White being like in a trance for so long and having, I mean, who knows? But I mean, that just can come with it. You can use it for good. It doesn't have to be like, oh, that means that, you know what I mean? You're talking to like the ancestors or whatever. We could just pick up on it. Some of us just have, like, there's movies that like will show it too. Like your empathy can be so high that people can like feel it, you know what I'm saying? And like their energy resonates back on you, and like you feel all their emotions and stuff. So it's like weird, like, or you can pick up on things, or you'll see different patterns, you'll notice things because you'll see something and then you see it over and over again. So when I seen that truck and it had the cross, I mean, I don't know where my mind, like, so obviously that was divine intervention. Like, why did my mind even go there? And I'm thinking about the white horse and Christianity and how it like permeated through the world, and with the threat of the sword even. So when you see how some people were going through forced conversions and things like that, we can see some of our lineage. It can be from like Muslim to Christianity to no religion, or some just stayed with the Christianity too. So a lot of people, it's like however they were raised up. That's why it's so important to have these videos out. And one day I'm going to be old and just looking back at these and maybe educating myself again, right? Like reminding myself of these things, and to others too, right? So like while you still got the skills to share, you got to do it, right? So I mean, this is amazing. This is a miracle in itself. To be, it's like a portal. It's like, beam me up, Scotty. I can just press a button and I'm talking to people all over the world, and you guys can share what's going on with you. I'm sure you're hearing a lot about what's going on in the news. I can only imagine what you're hearing about when it comes to what's going on in America. But there's a lot of storms, there's a lot of things, but like who controls the weather, right? When you're dealing with even insurance, they talk about acts of God even. So when people are like super, antagonistic about these topics, it's like, okay, bring them down to like a practical level. Like you can have a policy and deal with whatever, right? I know like they might pay for certain flooding and stuff, but there's certain parameters that they can't cover, right? And things like acts of God comes up. So like, why would that be put in? Please, it's slow in your camera. What does that mean? Can you guys hear me well? Well, I know that you've seen some of these symbols everywhere. I could pick some out and just go into it. Even Mercedes, they're using a witchcraft symbol, that peace symbol. That's probably why they get so many people to buy their cars. It's like it has like this power over you, like you feel like you have to have it, right? Even those in the church too, they really really are under that illusion that blessings only come so-called financially, right? That's not the case. And even tarot and playing cards that we think are so innocent, playing cards even, how many businesses I see that are like so-called reading fortunes and stuff. So who are they talking to? But even people in so-called professional situations or settings, they have like weird counselors they talk to, or like they'll get input from different spiritualists. We all know John Dee was an advisor to Queen Elizabeth, I think the first, right? So he's like talking to angels, he said, and all of this stuff. Mostly converted guys forget to treat. Yeah, a lot of guys don't, because they're like, They got like these little, demons in their ear, right? They got too many leprechauns. They ate too many Lucky Charms, probably. Because some of the stuff I hear some people say on here, I'm just like, yeah, who's really controlling your vessel, really? I seen someone get a tattoo, a so-called, really macho man get a tattoo of a rose, not realizing that that's a very occultic symbol. You got that band Guns N' Roses, of course, right? Goes back to the Tower of Babel. This is a great book by Dr. Kathy Burns, PhD. Goes into all the different symbols that you see every day. Little children, they have no idea. It's like a broken foot. You can see sometimes you got to look at things more than one way, kind of take your time with it. And even the Skull and Bones cult at Yale University, big pharma too, with some of their signs and symbols. That's why I tell you guys to know what you're dealing with, know what you're looking at. And once you start seeing and knowing what certain things mean, you're like, of course, you're going to look at things a little bit differently than other people, right? And you're going to see certain symbols in the news articles, you're going to see certain emblems they wear, corporations. Like, really pay attention. You're going to start to see a pattern, and it's just to draw up chaos. It's to get people like in a panicky mode, a term called pandemonia. And this is how they control and cull the masses, as they say, right? So always look for the bottom line of what's going to happen. And we all exposed on here the Georgia Guidestones. I don't know if they've since taken it down, where they were trying to get the number of humanity down to 500 million. And what's the number that we're at today? So one day we're going to look like, prodigies, right? We're gonna look like we had some intel because our spirit is already like we're looking at things like already the patterns are there. And we can be in our everyday lives, like you have to survive somehow, some way, right? A lot of people, they have like the wrong perspective at looking at things, and God will open up opportunities and pathways and put you in situations where you will do his work, and you won't be controlled, and you won't be so easily swayed, and you will be put in the right position where you can make the empathetic call, or you could be there at the right time. And it could be for a season, and he could move you somewhere else. So just be open to it too, and not so limited, because I see some people on here, they like to like look at the external and act like, okay, this is why I can't get my opportunities. And I'm like, you're internalizing what you see too much. It's really not like that. You got to take the first step. It's like that story in with Plato, the cave, where they were sheltered for so long and just saw like propaganda. It was like puppets they used at the time, and now they call a lot of these politicians and celebrities puppets, right? And if you'll see certain clips, there's a lot of people who do great compilations where they're saying the same thing in every damn news article or news special or whatever, like verbatim, like it's a script, like, you know what I mean? It's like they are there to make us think a certain way, and that's it. And then, get people stressed about things that they so called can't control. And it's always the most, we're hearing about this immigrant crisis since I was a child, when most of these companies are hiring the immigrants, like the same ones who are complaining about it. It's like, okay, then why are you hiring them? Oh, because you pay them half, right? You pay them less. Like, then don't, like, how are you talking both sides of your mouth? And a lot of the people who are saying the most then themselves were probably a few generations down. So it's like the same conversations, and who's doing that or whatever. And if it's like that bad, then spread everyone out instead of putting them in these closed settings, right, where there's like land all over that is uninhabited, right? So it's like there is space, like not everyone needs to be in the same area. A lot of these towns are overpopulated because they're only meant for like 10,000, and now there's 90,000 people there. Like, but why these certain locales? So there's who's planning, who's in charge of the zoning, who's doing what, and I've been learning about special permit use. Got to look into that. A lot of people are rezoning their stuff. Some of their stuff is zoned incorrectly, and maybe learning about that and looking for places where it's agricultural and you can grow your own stuff would be a good start. Mm-hmm. I'll address you more. Thank you. I appreciate that. But just invest in a few dollars and like maybe a book, or just something that will increase your awareness, will definitely help you make better decisions. Because when I see certain things, like, who didn't have one of these rabbit foots? This is so ghoulish, but I'm guilty too. They were selling them at the stores when I was a child. And I'm like, what in the God's name? Like, really? So a lot of people are doing abominable stuff, and it's like when God's wrath comes upon us in like different ways. It could be with the weather, it could be with unfortunate situations, it could be with what I mean, removing them, whatever, what I mean, or even yourself. We have to just like take each day and be grateful, and work on what we can control and not feed into all of that stuff, but like learn, like, okay, what, like make a decision, like, what I mean. A lot of people are so in between. We're not guaranteed 100, 200 years here. And it's like, live your life as if you would be judged morally somehow, some way. And like, look around, like, look at the movie The Matrix, like, look around and how everyone has like a similar pattern. Like, how are you going to see this pattern over and over again? Like, that's what a good spiritual detective or diamond, okay, which I like to call you guys, is going to look at things. Like, you're going to sharpen your mind. You're going to have that inquisitive mind as a child, but refined as an adult, going back into your memory bank, looking at everything you ever learned, comparing it to the research you learn now, getting the books, cross-reference. Don't just be stuck at so-called public school education or a couple of years of college and think you know what's going on. I'll see some of those people just knowing enough to have their little six figures, but be like, their mind is like still very, very limited, and they make really good cogs in the wheel, I like to say, right, for the system. So, yes, I'm not sure. Hey, how are you, girl? We got my moderator, Shalom, Shalom, ending the night right. I started this channel doing a little bit of Sabbath school lessons. I grew up in the church, so we did a little Sabbath school, but they didn't do the deep dives like this, guys. They didn't show the darker side of things, like the truth about what we see in the secular world, because, they talk about all this stuff, and without showing, like, okay, maybe showing people the negative or like the demonic realm. Like, how can you not see, like, there's so much more to what we see when you see all these horrific things happening? How can you not know that there's a creator, there's somebody up, in the existence, right? And a lot of people, they'll make fun, they'll call him Sky Daddy, they'll do all this stuff, but it's because they already made a covenant with the dark side, and it's obvious. But they are very, very deceived, because their little payout at the end is going to be chump change, compared to what God had in store for them if they repented and stopped talking, like a degenerate, and giving young people the worst advice, and just to set them up for failure, or just people in general. Like, everyone thinks it's so cool to just cause chaos, and turn up and talk shit about this one or that one, or just like anything sacred and lovely and pure in this world. And I'm just like, man, obviously you can tell they're on the payroll for someone, just because you can just tell how certain people move. They'll use certain symbols in their pictures. I can understand some people make mistakes with their hands, but they're constantly throwing up shit like this. They're constantly like, yeah, sometimes, you know what I mean, you're going to wear certain colors, but if they're always wearing satanic colors all the time, it's obvious. And when you're moving with people like that, you can think that you're getting over, or you're living like a great lifestyle, but it is nothing but a booby trap. I'm gonna work on updating my merchandise. Stupid games, stupid prizes is my. I'm gonna have to put up some of my merch, guys. Hey, how are you? Hey, my dear, nice to see you. Hey. So Yeah, I'm gonna do the merchandise over a little bit, make it a little bit more funky. I did like the upgrade with Canva, and it says stupid games, stupid prizes, right? When people, they try to step to you. But you'll see certain numbers. Like I was just sharing with the rest of the class before you guys came in. I kind of hit hard in the beginning, kind of going into the verses, how like we hear about the hurricane and all that, and how in the Bible too, like going back to old school, how God was referred to being in the whirlwind. So, whirlwind can be another word for hurricane or tornado. We talked about how acts of God are in insurance policies, how they can't cover acts of God and stuff like that, right? And it makes you think, what was going on? Was there wicked stuff going on? Was it like a Sodom and Gomorrah? I know there's a lot of voodoo in Louisiana. I don't know in these parts like Florida. There's a lot of, things that are allowed there. They're not allowed in other places. They do, I think, they have a lot of sex clubs too. I just know that there's more a liberal attitude down there. I don't know what else. There's a lot of like talk about you know the connections with some of the politicians, with some of the billionaires, and the traveling back and forth. And that's why I'm really big on some of these channels, because they make me think they're part of the Jeffrey Epstein group when they're teaching guys to be all about just like the younger girls and 20-year-olds. It's like, stop playing. Because these guys are not dealing with the full deck, and they walk around like with no sense, and they're whole predators, right? And a lot of them like going to certain states or whatever, and Florida is a hot spot, so like just be careful. But it's in God's hands or whatever. And you got the Church of Scientology is based down there, where they do a lot of like weird stuff to the people, right? And you'll get a lot of religious people like going down there big time. And they take up a lot of land with these religious institutions, and who are they serving really? So, and it's just it's the perfect storm when people live as though they have all the control in the world and there is no God. I guess he has to step in and show us what's up, right? You got to throw a couple of storms here and there to be like, really, how'd you think it got like that? How do you think these trees got here? How do you think, this fish got here? How do you think you got here? Like, and we're just like, yeah, it gets crazy. So there's a lot of distractions online, maybe to make people feel helpless. Of course, a lot of the politicians know they want you to donate to them. A lot of them came from really wealthy families. So what do they need your donations for? Where is it going? We heard about a lot of the fraud with Hurricane Katrina and all that. It didn't go to the people that it needed to go to. So I'm really wary about doing all that. I'm all about grassroots. If we all pooled resources, that's fine, but I'd like to make sure it went to the right people. But I'm not sure what's going on overseas. You distract my focus. Very wise. Thank you. It's because I do read a lot too. You got the Caduceus with the medical system. Then you got places like Red Cross. They'll swoop in to try to save the day, right? But then they want to take people's blood and all that. And I tell you guys, be careful. I just exposed a little bit about Kim Kardashian too, with the blood facials. These people are very vampiric, okay? And how they put plasma as an anti-ager, okay? Plasma. Have you noticed that they set up plasma clinics in different working class communities? They have one in my community, and I've had some weird demonic stuff happen because went there and I was clamoring. I literally called them vampires, guys. I was like, breaking news, guys. We got vampires in Fall River. I was like, who do you people think you are? And I was getting mad because I was working with some people who told me they went and sold some of their plasma, guys. And I'm like, why would you do that? You know where it's going. And I'm sure they put it in vials and sell it for thousands. And I'm like, I can't, guys. And that lowers your ability to fight infection. Now, what else kind of diseases are attributed to not being able to fight infection, things like AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome. You can acquire this by giving away all of your God given fluids and not being able to fight off this shit. Yeah, you can see how, like, yeah, you got to be really strong and wise and mature and, like, have God to have your back to, like, know some of this stuff. Sometimes I got to put it in the back of my mind because it's, like, too much. But I've already exposed that, like, she or he, let's not go into the trans story right now because people try to ricochet that back on me when I'm 100% real, baby. Okay. And I don't use anything. This is no Botox, no nothing. Okay. It's just God gives me that divine wisdom to know which oils to use. Thank you very much. And they were putting plasma, and I'm like, that could be from whoever. Do you ever get like weird? I don't know. Sometimes people can get weird insight. I am a firm believer that some of the vaccines some of us got, I had to get the Rogam too for all those Rh negatives. You know what I'm talking about? Like, that's other people's DNA. If you didn't know, that's animal DNA. How do you not know some of your, like, have you ever got like a sensation or what felt like a vision? But I'm like, is this like somebody else's experience? Like, that's why they say it's not good to wear wigs, you ladies who do that, because you're taking on someone's essence. Their essence is there. So I mean, yeah, these are something that you really got to consider. Then 100's got to be driving you crazy then. Them 100s. What 100s? I appreciate, my friend. You are very kind. Oh, thank you. Yeah, the hair industry too. So, yeah, taking, and that's why I'm big on, not transferring anything or whatever. Yeah, I don't, my hair is not as thick and lush as it used to be. Never really, was too thick, but because we processed so much, it was more wavy and a little bit more curly at times too. When I, like scrunched it and stuff, but definitely don't wear wigs or anything like that. Just, you know what I mean? It's just too much work. I guess if you had alopecia and all of that, there's synthetic forms. There's people who really need it. I understand that. But the real stuff, it is somebody else's energy that's on there, right? So even with like vaccines and stuff, if people do not look at those ingredients like they used to, and you're hearing more and more people getting cancer at 63, 65, like, you know what I mean? That could just be like a ticking time bomb. I know some that's happened in their 50s, even younger. So you're like, what's in there that's like crossing, and like, I'm telling you. And with the signs and symbols, this was the first language. Think about hieroglyphics, like how people would communicate and stuff, right? So we shouldn't be naive that, like, yeah, they may use like what looks like, English letters, which a lot of people even say each letter is an actual symbol as well. You'll have a lot of designers using some of the symbols in their work. A lot of people who think of things like mermaids and stuff don't realize like the origin. I think it shows here, even the queen, like in her symbols. This is a really good book. Like I was telling some of these guys, my printer, again with this printer, even in my last place, this printer goes on by itself. The weirdest thing. Do you guys hear it? The weirdest thing that happens sometimes, I'm telling you. And people think I'm the spooky one. Well, it is what it is, right? Portals come in different forms. I suppose we are dabbling with a lot of technology that the ancients would look at and be like, this is sorcery. This person's not really here. They're in this device. They literally probably think someone's like in this thing. Like it's like probably like talking to a mirror back in the day, right? And you got somebody, right? Crowley, probably. Aleister Crowley, for those who are not in the know, just check out the Beatles album. What is it? Sergeant Pepper. And I've been researching this like a geek for the past few years. But it is really important to know because you just know, like, that a lot of what they're doing is like more spiritual, and it goes back into the mystery religions and paganism, Germanic paganism. And I think if you guys look up John Todd, if you go on YouTube, just put John Todd. He will talk about how he was raised in the so-called, I hate to even use the word Illuminati, right? Because that you use that word and it's like people like, oh, they try to dismiss you quick. And I'm like, listen to some of his stories. People still don't know what happened to him after the fact. There was another young lady. There's a lot of victims who came out. Some people have exposed this. If you look up the YouTube short, I Pet Goat. Right now, I Pet Goat 2. This will be on there, and it kind of expresses a lot. It kind of shows like the so-called Jesus character, kind of like taking down like what looks like the Dame Church, and there's a church in my area that kind of looks like that too, with the two pillars. So yeah, check this out, guys. We'll do this another time. I've been going at it for 40 minutes. Definitely invest in some books, and in that way you guys can understand things a little bit better when you're out in the world. Several guys use religion shield. Exactly. A lot of them start their own cults. A lot of them start their own groups. A lot of them, right, they'll do that, which is unfortunate, but that's why you guys have to be aware and look at things spiritually and see if they're doing things that don't make sense, right? Or you can see where the direction that they're going in, if they're like being inappropriate with like their students or whatever. If they are in the market for looking for a partner. I'm all about having a righteous man find a righteous woman. I don't believe in the Catholic way where they deprive the men of the women and they do God knows what to the nuns and to the altar boys, right? Like, but to use it as a front, to pander to women or to try to pimp them out. It can be emotionally, it can be spiritually, right? And financially, because they'll be like, hey, hit my cash app. And it's okay to support your favorite content creators, but just know what it is too. You know what I mean? Like if you want to help with for their time and things like that. But if they act like a little salacious about it and stuff, like I think you guys should use your own discernment if you want to encourage that or not, right? I know better. I know better. Y'all don't have to worry about that, right? I don't, and some of us don't even, got to show that we know. We just move like we know, right? And that'll be that, right? So, but we have our little, our discernment tuning fork is always very, very sensitive and very, very aware. So thank you so much, guys, for coming by. I hope you have a good Sabbath, a good rest, and I hope you learned something today. So I'll see you next time, guys. Take care and stay well.